Hello, we have this beautiful soul. I'm so happy and grateful to have Vince with me here today. So, hi, Vince. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. My name's Vince Polito, and I'm creator founder of the Inner Coaching Academy. And the Inner Coaching Academy is a trauma-informed coaching and training company. We work with individuals one-to-one. We run a relatively small group training called the Core Encounter. That's like our flagship program. It's 3 parts and about 6 months. So it's pretty long and in depth, which gives people a chance to heal, be empowered, and transform at deep levels and work with multiple areas of their life. There are 3 parts to that program I think are important. Core connection is just about connecting with oneself. Core communication is about learning how to repair and enrich relationships. And core creation is about unblocking those stubborn, unconscious, mental, emotional, somatic resistances that we hold from all the way back to childhood throughout our whole life that prevent us from achieving what it is that we really want and truly desire. So the Inner Coaching Academy is great. We train coaches. We have the Invincible Coach Training Program as well. And we train coaches how to implement this very powerful, very gentle, very effective work that leads people to explore the inner world of themselves. So inner coaching is about, most of us, regular coaching is about optimizing performance, a lot to do with external things. Inner coaching is very intimate. It's very inwardly oriented foundationally. Of course, we deal with external things like relationships and goals, but we start with the foundation that, most of us have some kind of painful background, some kind of childhood experiences, adverse childhood experiences that have affected us in some ways and are controlling the way that we perceive the world and how we behave, that may be limiting us in many ways are most likely. So we deal a lot with that and we help to bring completion to that, but we start from a place of empowerment that everybody's whole and complete already. And then we deal with the body mind system and we help to bring that body mind system into congruence with that center, the core of the individual, which we know is perfectly whole, united, powerful, even as the word appears, says invincible. And so this right here just points to our Invincible community in Facebook. That's where we just allow people to come in, experience this work. We have a lot of free trainings that we do every week. And we're really passionate about empowerment and life expansion for humanity worldwide. So I could say a lot more about it, but I'll just pause there and leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you. So lovely. And I'm so impressed by you're a guy, you're a man, and you do this with the trauma thing. And it's not many guys who do that. So, way, I need to, yay for that. So,
I love that. That's
thank
great.
you. But can I ask you, how do you do to keep your mental health in check? Daily
Well,
basis.
I think it starts with first the earlier work. I've been on this journey intentionally for about 23 years now. And I think in order to maintain mental health wellness and emotional well-being, and I think it's important to really get complete with the historical issues. My historical issues were pretty heavy. Not everybody has them as heavy. Some people have them even heavier than I have, but I think it's important to get a little bit of a background about why I am in this work. And before I could say, how do I maintain? But it's, growing up, my parents were divorced around 7 or 8 years old. And then my mother, when I was about 10, she met a man in the neighborhood who she started dating. And this man eventually started abusing her very severely. In fact, the first most severe incident was him shattering her nose on her face. Her nose was like splat flat on her face. She was bleeding everywhere. She was in front of the door, and I was just shocked. As a boy, I was already like into martial arts, and I was kind of protective already of my sister in school, and so I kind of had this little bit of a macho kind of attitude as a 10-year-old. And suddenly, for the first time, I felt really inferior. I felt helpless. I felt powerless. This man was really big and strong and tough and mean, and I felt immobilized, and my perception of myself was shattered. I made some very self-destructive decisions in that moment, that I was maybe a coward, that I was never going to be strong enough, I should have done better, but I didn't. So there was a lot of self-hatred that was developed in that moment. And this is really important to understand how I got into this work. But that mentality, it just crippled me. I went to school the next year, because this was during the summer when that happened. And I started experiencing bullying like crazy. And I can look back and see, yeah, I had so much self-hatred. I felt so small, so inferior. Of course, people would pick on me, you know? And so I was tired of people picking on me, and I was fighting back, right, to try and like be tough. And then I got invited to join a gang, and I had to be initiated in this gang. I had to fight 5 guys that were bigger than me. I'm only, I think, 12 years old by the time this happened, right? It's like still a little kid, right? And but that began this like journey to try and compensate really severely by being a tough guy, a bad guy. I got involved with drugs eventually, and crime and violence, as much as, fighting all the time in clubs and in the street and like whatever, just looking for trouble. And it was my way of trying to escape all that pain. And I discovered this because in 1999, I've been using drugs very heavily, dealing a lot of drugs, using a lot of drugs, and I overdosed and I almost lost my life. And and sitting in the hospital, I was handcuffed to the bed. It was a violation of my probation to be using drugs because I was on probation. I really thought, wow, like if I keep up this lifestyle, I'm never going to survive. Like there's no way. Like I was doing 4 days of cocaine and other drugs, keeping myself awake, not even sleeping, just getting high one day after the other until I couldn't get high anymore. It was really bad. And I decided I need to change everything. So I did. And that began my journey into this path that I'm on now. It's searching for answers. Like, how did I become this way? Like, why am I this way? And I definitely cannot be that person. Who can I be? And, gosh, I almost was dead, but I didn't see any, I had no heartbeat, I had no pulse. But when I was unconscious, I didn't see God. I didn't see angels. I didn't see heaven or hell. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. The things that I've heard about, people talk about that stuff. So I was terrified that, wow, if I had really died that day, if I never came back, I would never have known it. And that was my perception. So I was like, man, is there anything more to life after death? Like when we die, is there a continuity of that? And so I was very hungry for those answers. And I just cut off everyone and everything, and I began spending time in nature. I went to the library to try and find answers in books. I didn't trust my brain. I didn't trust my mind and how I was thinking or feeling. I had a lot of bad thoughts going in my mind because of the life I lived for the last 11 years. So I just began studying, and I found Zen Buddhist meditation. And that made me practice the sitting and just observing my breath and my body, quietly doing nothing. And little by little, my brain began to quiet down and settle down. My body began to relax. And I was like, I began to feel the sense of peace and calm. And what I didn't know was about to happen. And I don't recommend meditation for everyone as a starting point, at least alone, because this can happen to them. My traumatic incidents as a child that were now they were covered up by all the drugs and alcohol and the lifestyle. All of a sudden, I started to remember. I had these flashes of my childhood, of my mom getting beaten, me trying to help protect her, stopping him from hurting her, taking care of her wounds, and him cutting her with a knife one night and she bleeding everywhere and having to patch her up. And just terrible things that were there. They were just like popping into my mind. And it was like, I started to feel how I felt. I started to feel the emotion. I started to feel the pain. I started to feel the anger. And I was alone when these things were happening. And I would cry, and I would smash the floor, and I was like, raging out, like just kind of like dramatizing a lot of this pain and letting it move through my body. I didn't have any real education at this time about this. It was kind of spontaneous. I was a little lucky. But I also fell into some despair and a sense of shame and a sense of guilt, which is why I say meditation can be a little dangerous for some people sometimes if they contact trauma and they don't have any support on how to manage it. I actually became suicidal when I encountered these feelings, and I, had the knife to my neck. I was ready to stab my throat just to end the feelings of shame and guilt. I also developed a conscience because I had been selling so much drugs and pushing drugs and so violent that I suddenly felt bad for people. I started realizing what I had done, and that also brought more shame and guilt upon me, which made me also want to almost check out. So I'm very fortunate that there were things in my heart that were keeping me alive, somewhat, and not allowing me to just get rid of myself. I had gone to a Christian school when I was a young boy for like 5, 6 years till fifth grade. And the one day that I had the knife to my throat, I remember I was really about to just check out. I was so determined, pressing the knife in. And then all of a sudden, I just heard the song "Oh Holy Night" just pulsing through me like automatically. And it just this feeling of peace. And I remembered going to this Christian school, and it was like, oh, wait a minute. There is like there it was a good school. It wasn't strong religion, this school. It was very loving and supportive, community, family oriented. And I'm very fortunate I had that experience because it made me realize there are good people in the world and there is possibly hope. Like I felt like there was some kind of sanity because my home life was crazy. My personal lifestyle was crazy. But during that time in my life, I got to experience wholesome families. I didn't know what that was because my family wasn't like that, but I remember there is that, and so that made me want to keep pressing forward. And so I began doing a little bit more searching. And um, in less than a year after breaking away from the drugs and the crime and everything after the overdose, I had a personal encounter with nothing less than what I can call God, because it was just that clear. I wasn't a believer in God. I wasn't going to church. I was studying other religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and other philosophies, from especially Eastern philosophy and perspectives, different forms of spirituality, spiritual ideas. I knew I wanted to have an enlightenment experience, but I wasn't sure that God was the real thing, and I certainly wasn't into the Bible or anything like that. But I had this encounter one day where the light just filled me, and I was suddenly aware of my internal space, not even aware of the outer world. I fell to my knees and I started automatically saying the word Jesus Christ. And it was shocking to me. I didn't see a man like people talk about. I didn't see a guy with robe and beard, but there was this recognition that this being that people say his name is Jesus, it's the beingness of absolute love and all pervasive love that all are included in. And it was like a cosmic revelation of love. And I was in this, and I was one with this, and I was stood up. I knew in this moment that I was the offspring of God, that this mind was born out of God as a source. And I also realized that every living thing, every human being also originates right out of this same eternal expanse. And you were asking me about the invincible word earlier, and that's the experience was invincibility. It was like infinite life. It was like unbreakable, unshakable livingness. And it was like I was feeling this through my whole body. It was the most powerful, profound, ecstatic, and pleasurable experience. It was a recognition that I never really die. The body may come and go, but the beingness that brought this body into existence is eternal, invincible, indestructible. And that recognition was like, I mean, it was just life changing. I had already kind of gotten away from the drugs and the crime lifestyle, but this was like light. Like now I know who I am and who we all really are. And it's like, how do I help other people experience this? Because it was the most beautiful thing in the universe I ever encountered. So now I want to tell everybody. And I was very inexperienced and immature. I guess I was just like, we're all God. I mean, I would say this, and like, I had Christian people that were getting angry with me because they're like, they believe some people are going to heaven, some are going to hell. They have this perspective. And so they were arguing with me. Religious people thought I was nuts. So I was like, I found it very difficult to relate to people this experience. So I'm like, the last 22 years have been, how can I help human beings discover this for themselves? And I studied religion. I got involved with Christianity. I finally started reading the Bible, and I found that the Bible only confirms my experience. Other religions confirm my experience. And Jesus really is this livingness of life, like whatever it says in the Bible about what I encountered is true. And it really is the apex of all of us, but nobody's excluded. And so that's what led into some of this work. And then I had a marriage that was really struggling. I didn't know how to help my ex-wife. She had severe trauma. She was raped and molested by her father as a child. And when that marriage ended after 4 years, like I knew something was missing. I had a lot of spiritual principles and practices. And I had I started studying the Bible and praying and all that. And I was really coming into that practice. And it was really helping me in the world with so many people. I was counseling others. I was praying for others. And I was seeing miracles, but it couldn't help my wife. It couldn't help my relationship, couldn't help me. So I began to look for something more. And I really prayed and with all my heart, like for answers. And I found the world of processing and therapeutic practices. and how to lead people to their inner world and explore what's in the way for them, like real skilled and structured ways to do that. And that is how I began this path of inner coaching. That was about, you know, 15 years ago now, maybe. And here I am today. So it's kind of a long story, but a lot of work had to be done, a lot of healing around the childhood experiences. And I know you're big on inner child work. And I'll just say that, inner child work it's really about getting complete with all that the child was not able to control or felt powerless in or was wounded by whatever was going on in their environment. It's about empowering that child with the sense of love, compassion, and acceptance. And so that was a big part of what had to happen. And we can talk more about that, but I'll just take a pause there. And thank you so much for your patience and letting me just get all that out. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your trust, for want to share all this. I wasn't sure if I could ask you and if you wanted to share. So I'm grateful and thank you for your trust that you want to share. It's so I'm humble for all the thing you wanted to share with me today. So thank you so much, and it's so. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say actually. So
It started with you asking me, like, how do I keep up, and it's like, well, that journey and all that, all the exploratory work and the practice, like that's what gave me, and learning what was really going on. And now I have a really good system, a good framework. Like, I've spent years mastering like what's going on in a human being that keeps them stuck, that doesn't allow them to experience freedom and joy, aliveness, and power. I've gotten it dialed into a science at this point where we know that there's the realm of thoughts, there's the realm of emotion, there's the realm of somatics, the feelings and sensations in the body. And then what's also present is the unconscious effort impulses that automatically fire these urges to survive that are reactive. And so we lead people now to become aware of all these different parts of the body mind system so that they can start to have mastery over what typically is running on an unconscious level and is very pervasive in most people's lives. And they don't understand, why do I do what I do? Why do I keep running into the same bad relationships and blah, blah, blah. And so, we teach them about how they function. Then we also help them get complete with those core wounds, right? Which always start back in childhood for almost everybody. And the core fears that develop around that, because once you have a core wound, a deep wound, you're afraid that it's going to happen again. So now you're living on this defensive edge all the time. And so that's a hindrance. It doesn't allow us to be fully expressive. In various ways we stop ourselves because I don't want to get hurt again. And then there's core beliefs, which is, the conclusion that I am or I am not something. Like, I concluded I'm not strong. I'm never going to be strong enough to overcome this guy who's hurting me. And that becomes a belief, like this deep-seated like identity, right? And then there's, people are or are not something. Like, we make decisions and conclusions about what people are going to be or not be. And then the world is, and the world is not. We make these global, universal, or decisions about what God is or isn't, and those core beliefs, they start very early in childhood. That's where they're happening. And we don't mean to do it. We don't even know that we're doing it. And then we grow up, we develop what I call masks. Our masks are ways of trying to compensate, the ways that we try to project strength to the world or success to the world, or be approved of by the world and other people, and to hide how I really feel to myself and to other people. It's not just hiding from others. I'm also hiding from my own. I don't want to feel inferiority at my core. I don't want to be with that. It's scary. It's hurtful. So we lead people to explore that inner world. And of course, the child comes into view for almost all of us when we do this work. And we have a very compassionate, we teach people how to regulate their nervous system and bring love, compassion, and care and acceptance to whatever was and whatever wasn't, no matter how bad it was. And most people have believed when they're a child that this shouldn't have happened. I can't handle this. It's too much for me. And that's how it remains, right? That's the memory they have. And the condition, the program, we show people how to feel that central axis of power and peace and freedom, that they are awareness. They're not their mind. They're not their emotions. They're not the body. And they're not their memories, but they're the being in which all of it occurred. And so most people don't distinguish that. They don't even know that. They think I am my thoughts, I am my emotions. And so we give them that freedom to realize that they're actually that invincible life that's at the center of their own existence first. Then we can look at, so I think a lot of trauma therapy and approaches I've seen and experienced in my years of being in this work goes right into like the problems and tries to figure out what's wrong with you. And we start from nothing's wrong with you. Look how powerful you are. Give them an experience of that. Then they have a high degree of confidence and joy and they feel amazing. And it's like, now let's bring your body mind into alignment with that, right? Let's bring the thoughts and the emotions, the feelings and sensations. Let's bring the core wounds, core fears, core beliefs, and the masks that you wear. Let's bring them into alignment inside of this light, this presence of life that is really you. And so that approach gives us a lot of success because people feel very safe. They feel very encouraged. They feel very powerful right from the ground up. And so I think it just accelerates the process from my observation. And we get a lot of good work done. And the inner child work is much easier when there's the presence of love and compassion. Of course, the group work is the one last thing I want to speak to. When you've got like 10, 15 people together who are all there for you and you know it, it's so much, you feel, your brain knows I am supported. There is a lot of strength here. So it's much easier to go handle the things that maybe I wouldn't feel so safe to go in by myself, for sure. Even maybe with one other person, I might resist a little bit. But when there's a group of people and you know they got you, like they're going to hold you and accept you no matter what's there, no matter how bad it was, that's so healing to the nervous system, the brain, and the body. It literally reconditions the way that we relate to all of our past history and our painful incidents. So I love group work. And I think it's really important, especially when you're dealing with the inner child stuff. It could be so potent and much faster than trying to just do it on my own, which I don't think we could ever really get to the bottom of it by ourselves. I think the relationship with another person, a leader who really has been there, who can love and show compassion and make that sense of safety be recorded more intimately and deeply within you, I think that's essential.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have talked about a lot of different things. So I really don't know what to ask you now. I feel I have answered all my questions. So is that okay? I'm jumping and just ask you a random question instead?
Absolutely. Anything you want to talk about, I'm happy to be here. I'm so delighted.
Good. You said something about that you empower people to they are not their thoughts and not their memory. And but have you met someone who has a resistant, like, no, I am my thoughts, I don't want to join your group, because they hold on to that limited belief they have? And how do you handle those situations if you have got into it?
Well, because the way I'm positioned in the world, I don't really run into that a lot today. And because I've created myself to be someone who's really clear that it doesn't work to force people, control people, or change people by my effort. And our work is completely like, we are an invitation for people to discover their power, right? And to really experience that, because I always take that. That's why I didn't go the therapist role. I didn't want to be a therapist with a patient. I like the coach model better, because just the concept of that is different already from the ground up, right? Coaches empower you to optimize your performance, to be better. You're already great. You're an athlete, but we're going to just support you in maximizing the greatness, right? There's just a perspective of coaching that I thought was way more important. So people who come to us tend to already have an interest in doing the work. Have I been with people like you're talking about? Yes. And I have done the pushing and the pulling and the trying to get them to, and it doesn't really work. So how do you get to someone like that? It's possible. All right. And I'm not going to say it's not possible. It definitely is. But it requires a certain kind of humility. And it also requires a certain inner world orientation. Rather than trying to change the person, this is where prayer can be very valuable. But see, prayer is such a generic word. And some people, when they pray, it's like they're talking to God that's over here, and maybe God will answer my prayer. For me, prayer is a science. Prayer is a way of tapping into the realm of limitless potential, right? It's a way of going beyond the limits of my own thinking. it doesn't look like this person wants to change, right? And they're telling me, I don't care, I don't want to do it. Like, I'm not, doesn't matter what you say. So I might just be like, okay, whatever, there's nothing I can do. But when I go into a state of inner prayer, I can say, you know what? They're resistant. I acknowledge and I validate their resistance internally. Also, it's beautiful to do with them. But if I go internally, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, of course they don't want to go this way. Of course they don't want to do this. Whatever is there stopping them, my heart opens to that. I choose, this is an internal process where if I create a condition in my heart that accepts their choice right now, their resistance, and I feel into that and I welcome it and I allow it the same way I would teach a client to deal with their own inner world. I welcome and allow their resistance. Of course, they're afraid. Of course, they don't want to do this. What something stops them, even if I don't know what it is, the wisdom of God's love and light inside of me recognizes what's really there. And I can just be with that and honor that. And I can just cultivate a sense of love, compassion, and acceptance without trying to force that person to be changed or try and control them in any way. And so by surrendering internally and just letting my whole body, my mind, my heart feel that this person is already exactly who they need to be. Like love is already present, they're already whole. I feel the reality in my inner being that they're coming to realize the truth of who they are. I have seen miracles take place by doing that. And I've never had to even talk to the person.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Wow, so much wisdom and so much love and just a bump of love. I really wanted to hug you.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Zoom hug.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Thank you.
what about the inner child healing? How much you have done and how you experience it and what you want to tell? It's a free choice if you.
Yeah. Well, inner child healing is essential for living freely and powerfully as an adult. We all have incompletion in our childhood. Incompletion means there are things that happened that I don't accept, that I wish didn't happen. I'm resisting something about my childhood experience. And anything we're resisting in our childhood experience is going to leave us in a sense of limitation. We're going to be having a reactive condition somewhere inside that will show up in our current relationship, adulthood, and with an intimate partner or coworkers or family members. And that doesn't work. So it's really important to give oneself the time and the space to really honor and validate, acknowledge everything that we've gone through as a child, and to really accept, come to a place of acceptance after we first validate, hey, this really hurt me. And really, I think the somatic work is critical. That you can't think about this stuff and fix it or adjust it or change it. You have to welcome it. You have to open up to the feelings that were there, how the body felt, what emotions were present as a child. And by doing that, those feelings and emotions get seen, they get heard, they get a sense of being understood and received by my current older adult self. And of course, working with a practitioner is what I think is the best way, because I don't think we know how to do that alone. And I don't think we can really give it to ourselves alone. I haven't been able to do it to myself, and I'm really good at this work. So really learning how to welcome that child back into safety and really acknowledging the hurt, the pain, the fear, every emotion that was there. It has to be acknowledged. I think most of us as adults are trying to change ourselves. We're trying to fix it. We're trying to get rid of it. We're trying to escape it or deny it or dismiss it or suppress it. And that always leads to a schism or a split internally. So I think it's critical that we learn to go back and honor what was there, bring love and compassion, let the child have what they have and say, I got you. Like, it's okay. You're safe with me now. Whatever you've been through, it was scary. It was painful. And you can feel all of that right here with me. And I'm going to feel all of that right here with you. And love is going to get that complete. And I get to experience this all the time with clients. It's so beautiful, so important. And then we can live truly free. So I'll leave it at that and say, yeah,
Thank you so much. Wow, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your.
You're very welcome. Thank you for allowing me to share.
And can I ask you, do you have any advice for someone new in this journey, especially if someone is a guy, since you're a man? So if you have any advice for those, it would be lovely.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been a man's man. I've been, I've been the tough guy. I grew up shooting guns, martial artist, street fighting, like, I've got the tough guy persona and characteristics and all that aggression and all of that we typically think is a man. But what I found was, when I was acting that way, it was an act. It was an act that was covering up the fact that I felt really weak, helpless, and insecure inside. Now I can be extremely gentle. I can be very loving. I can be very vulnerable. I can be emotionally connecting. I can feel and share and validate my own emotions. I don't have to be emotionless. I can be strong when I need to be. I can be in my warrior, but I can also be in my lover, and I can be gentle and kind and nurturing, and I can be the king and be benevolent and manage my kingdom. And I can also be the magician who offers that sacred transformational space. That inner mystical journey can be possible. I really think it's important that men understand that we're multifaceted beings. And I mean, if there's any incentive for men, that I'm just going to tell you that women love it when you're emotionally connected and aware and masculine and strong. Most, I think, healthy women, because I know I experience women all the time are telling me how much they love who I am, and oh wow, like, and they love talking with me because I share myself so vulnerably, so authentically. They're like, most men are just so closed off, and it's not even attractive. Women are really looking for men that are connected with themselves. And so I say that for men who maybe they'll have a reason, they need a motive maybe to take this journey on. And like, it's worth it because suddenly women look at you very differently. They feel you very differently. There's a lot of men that just, they want to have that nice lady, but they don't seem to be able to get it. And it's like, be the man. It's not how good you look. It's not about your money and all that. That will create a superficial connection. If you do the inner work and you really connect with yourself intimately and deeply, and you learn how to communicate and express, women are going to just melt in your hands. They're going to want to be with you, and you're going to find the kind of woman that maybe you haven't been able to before. So it's good for you, but it also is great for having better relationships and better feminine relationships in your life, in my experience anyway.
Wow, thank you. It was another perspective to say, look at it. So I loved it actually. Very good. Good motivation for a lot of guys
Yeah.
to get
They
help.
need some motivation to go there. Yeah. Well, because we grow up and it's so, men are supposed to be tough, strong, never cry. It takes a lot of strength and courage to be emotionally aware and to be honest about how one feels, and to, as Bruce Lee would said, express oneself honestly. And like, what that really means is like, I can be in touch with all those things. That doesn't mean I lose my strength or my power. In fact, I have more of it because I'm not reacting. I'm not covering things up. And when you're covering things up, that's kind of to me, I consider that now as a weakness in a sense, like, not to be judgmental about it, but it's like, it's really because I do feel weak, right? Real strength is, you know what? I can be with the hurt. I can be with the sadness. I can be with all that, but I'm not overcome by it. When you open up to everything that's there within you, what's interesting is nothing overtakes you or overpowers you. It just comes and it goes and it flows, and you are aware of it. So you have a freedom. And that's why I have tremendous confidence being with all my own stuff. And of course, leading to other people into it. Because I know, like, the only outcome is going to be freedom.
Well, yes, so true. I'm into that. Thank you. I look at you as a balanced and full of light and love in you. So I'm so grateful to
Thank you.
have you here, and thank you for your trust and your time and your energy you have
Absolutely.
shared with me and my people. So thank you so much. I would love to talk to you more some later maybe. So we should do that. Thank you.
Yeah, it'd be a pleasure. It's been a blessing being here with you. Thank you for your beautiful, warm heart and your care for humanity and your contribution to the world and the inner child work that you're offering, which is so essential and necessary. So thank you very much for that.
Sweet.